G'day folks, and welcome to Gormo's Shed. Well, this week we're looking at a loco repair. This is an old Hornby diesel, and I won't take it out of this loco cradle because it's in bits and pieces. It's a loco that I've had for some time. I bought it second hand. It never was a great runner. It used to run, but obviously it's got problems inside, and most of it to do with time and use, I think. So it's about time this thing was taken apart, cleaned up, and see if we can get it running properly again. So that's what we'll do. We'll have a look at it. Right folks, so we'll just lay the body just over there gently, and as we do, you'll notice that over here we've got some very dodgy soldering on a wire here connecting up to the light. Yeah, and it's also connected onto the end of the caps for the brushes for the motor. We'll just put that down. The gears look as though they're sort of clogged up with muck. The ballast here is wrapped up in electrical tape. Looks like it might be a stack of washers or something. I don't know until I get that out. The other end here with the where the other light is, the other cabin for the other direction, there's a diode here for obviously for directional control for the light, but there's a red wire here that's only hanging on by a thread. That's a pretty bad connection, and as I look down, just get that out of the way, so I look down inside here, there's a pickup which looks like it's been soldered on and added on to the original pickup. It's actually sitting on top of the wheel. It should be behind the wheel. The one in front looks like a replacement, but that's sitting behind the wheel. The ones on the other side look original, and solder connections to those seem to be fairly good. Yeah, so it's a matter of taking it to bits and I think rewiring the whole thing and trying to get it going. I think I'll have to open the motor up as well because there's some sort of grease on the back of the motor. Yeah, all this stuff is just, it's not good. So I think if we can clean it up, I mean the loco's got a bit of weight, it's got a metal chassis, plus with the ballast there, the ballast will be okay. You'll never see that again. I think we should be able to get this thing running reasonably well, hopefully. So we'll see how we go. Well, the first place to start, folks, is the motor, and I've got that out, and it's a bit like a grease pit actually, so I think it's a matter of stripping this down and starting again, get it all cleaned up first. It's so well greased up. There's a couple of brushes in there, carbon brushes in here, and they won't fall out, which is a bit sus. And I can see fibres inside the motor here. Crikey, mind you, it's a good solid old motor. It's got a brass plate here, it's all screwed together. Like the newer versions are just plastic and pushed together sort of situation. So if we can get this cleaned up, I it should run pretty good, I think. So I'll start taking it apart and we'll see what happens. Well folks, you should be able to see why it won't run. It's got black stuff all over the armature here. Inside the plate it's all black. That's why the brushes wouldn't fall out. They're all gunked up. Ooh wee. It's a bit of a clean up. Yeah, alright, well we'll see what happens. Crikey, I haven't seen one this bad before. Okay, I've got most of the grease off, but I'm just going to try and clean up this armature a bit more and scrape out in the tracks between each of the copper strips, because you don't want electrical arcing in there between the commutators. There's a build-up of gunk in these ones, so I'll just carry on with that. You can't run these locos, I mean if the loco's playing up, by drowning it in oil and grease is not going to fix any of these problems. There's always a logical reason why a loco won't run properly, and as I say, you won't fix the problem by just drowning it in oil and grease. It'll have the opposite effect like this one, where it actually won't run anymore. So hopefully by giving it a good clean we'll get there. Right, that's that part cleaned up and ready to go. Looks a bit different to how it started, but as I say, no wonder the thing wouldn't run. Anyway, now we'll get on to the gears and stuff here, so I'll have a look at that. Right folks, I'm just cleaning up the gears and the chassis here that holds the motor. The whole thing was just covered in grease and it's sort of thick, caked on stuff, so I've got to wipe it off. While I'm doing it, I'm checking the gears to make sure that the teeth aren't clogged as well. So you know, it all takes a bit of time, but I think it will finish up freer moving in the end if you take the time to sort of clean it up properly. So I'll just carry on with that. Okay, that's the motor back together, and just got to sort out what's going on with the brushes now and springs, and we'll do a test run on just to see if the motor runs. So I think that's the next stage. So I'll start cleaning up the brushes and see if we can get something rigged up to test it. Well folks, nothing's ever easy. These motors have a little brass cap that goes over to hold the spring on that holds the brush in place. Well, the brass cap for this side was, in a word, stuffed. So I've made up just a strip of plastic to hold it in place, because I've still got a point down here where I can solder on a wire which will make connection with this, so that's okay. This side's a bit more tricky, but fortunately this cap fits. So I've just made this plastic strip out of a bit of an ice cream tin lid, and that'll keep the spring in place, and hopefully now we should be able to run it. I'll try and hold it and hang on, my fingers are in the way of the gears. Okay, no, that won't work either. Try holding it with the pliers. Okay. Tricky. Okay, we have action. Right, we're on the right track. Well folks, that's one part done. I've got the bogie frame back onto the motor. You can see that I've put a couple of new wires on. I've made them extra long because I'll have to trim them off, but that's all back together, and yeah, so now it's a matter of working on the other bogie, I suppose. The other thing with this one is that it's going to need traction tyres. One's just fallen off a while ago, the other one literally spins around on the wheel, so I'll have to put some bullfrog snot on these ones. But I might wait till I've got the whole thing back together, and then I can just let it run for as long as it likes in the cradle there until the bullfrog snot cures. So yeah, so far so good. The motor's actually running, and yeah, everything's good. So on to the next stage. Right, I've just got the pickup bogie out, and I'm going to have to drop out this section that holds the pickups in, but I'll have to be really careful with it. I think it looks a bit fragile. The pickups need adjustment, cleaning up, and as I said, one of them's actually sitting over the top of the wheel, so all that's got to be sorted out, and we'll have a look at the electrical connections down here too. Yeah, so I'll get onto that. Oh, well folks, it's the same old story. The pickups were all gunked up, and this actual piece here is very fragile. There's the plastic's too old, it's starting to break up. I've cleaned the bogie up, cleaned the backs of the wheels up, so I'll try and put it together, but this might need a replacement eventually with a bit of circuit board or something. Possibly should do it now, but I'll try and get it back together. What I'll do first is solder some new wire connections on there, and yeah, we'll see how we go. It's not looking good though. Anyway, we'll see. Well, we've got the new wiring connections in, and cleaned up the pickups, backs of the wheels, and the treads on the wheels. I'm not going to do too much in here with cleaning because the plastic is so fragile. So as I said before, possibly at some stage this will need a circuit board replacement if it fails. So at the moment it's sitting there, it doesn't really have to do much, so if it ain't broke we won't fix it. So now it's just a matter of moving on and connecting up the wiring, getting the bogies back into the chassis, and yeah, we'll see how that goes. Okay folks, here it is all wired up now. I've got a couple of click fit connections here, so if I need to take it apart again I don't have to cut wires and all that sort of thing, but you know, they're taped up to just keep them secure. The bulb is wired up at this end. I found the bulb at this end had failed, so I've put an LED in there, so I'm not quite sure how that's going to work out, but you know, if it works out good, well I'll pull the bulb out and replace that. But at the moment it's ready to go back together, and as I say, it does need traction tyres, so it's not going to run as well as it could straight off, but then I'll put it back together and then we'll have a look at it on the track just to see how it goes. But at least it's running, that's the main thing. Okay, here it is folks. Bear in mind it needs traction tyres, so one set of wheels is almost running on the sleepers because of the groove in the wheel. So we'll give it a burl. There we go. Back the other way. It's not going to go through points very well at the moment until it gets its traction tyre. It'll catch on the check rails. So I'll just give it a bit of a run here. Yeah, it hesitates a bit through there. All that can be sorted out though. And this is the LED, and I don't know whether you can see that. It barely lights up, but it's enough. It's not as bright as the other end. The globe. Okay folks, that's gone from a pretty bad non-runner to now it's working. So as I say, traction tyres will make a big difference to it. So I'll get onto that tonight and maybe do an update at some stage to show it running properly. Well, there you go folks, there it is all back together. It's gone from dead as a maggot to running again. I don't think it'll ever be a great runner because the pickups are purely at one end. So you've got two wheels at one end of the bogie and two at the other. It'd be better if it had pickups up the other end as well, and I think it would run a lot better. As I say, the traction tyres need to go on this end here, and I use bullfrogs not so, but that needs to cure overnight. So I need to lay it upside down in the loco cradle, put the stuff on and let it run for quite a while until the stuff starts to cure, and then let it set overnight, and that'll get rid of that sort of clunky running, and then it needs a good run and probably a bit of lubrication on the gears. Yeah, it should be alright for a bit of a loco just to run around. It should be able to run very well. Anyway, that's it for this week. Cheers, Gormo.